You're listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here are your co-hosts, Andrew Forbes, Peter Baracchini, and Alex Hoffton.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 182 of Sticks in the Six podcast. Here with my co-host, Peter Baracchini. I'm Andrew Forbes, and Peter, we've got some exciting news, an exciting guest coming on today. Rather, second episode in a week, or second episode in the last week that we're doing it while the game is going on. So we'll give you some live updates as we're going. But before we get to anything, quick word from Skylight Frame. Skylight, it's the perfect time of year. We know it. We live away from some family and friends. Perfect time of year to connect with loved ones. There's no better way to put a smile on your loved one's face than to share a special photo. Whether it's a glimpse of the kids being silly, a magical moment from a vacation, or a sentimental memory from years past, Skylight Frame brings your favorite memories to life right in your home. It's not just for the tech savvy. For those who love a little extra, Skylight's Plus software offers advanced features that enhance the experience. One standout feature is Doodles, where you can draw a picture on your app and it appears directly on your loved one's Skylight Frame, perfect for adding a personal touch or a bit of fun. Another great feature is greeting cards, where you can choose from hundreds of designs and send an interactive card that appears on the frame, creating special moments for birthdays, holidays, or just because. This holiday season, give the gift that keeps on giving memories. Whether it's for grandparents who adore seeing the grandkids' latest antics, or a friend who loves capturing every moment, the Skylight Frame is the perfect gift to bring joy and connection into your home. It's effortless setup and instant sharing with no app or subscription required, and a quick 1-minute setup. Skylight is designed to be easy for all ages. Simply plug in the frame and you're ready to start sharing memories. It's the ultimate surprise. Preload your favorite photos before gifting the Skylight Frame. When your loved ones plug in their new frame, they'll be welcomed with special memories ready for immediate enjoyment. And you can stay connected even without Wi-Fi. Enjoy viewing your existing photos without Wi-Fi connection. When connected, new photos can be received in under 60 seconds, keeping your frame up to date with the latest memories. It's better than social media. Skylight Frame is a great private way to share photos without posting them to the world or having to print hard copies. Skylight Frame can hold up to 8,000 photos with 8 gigabytes of space. And photos are displayed in HD resolution, and you can choose from 5 different frame styles. Set it up in portrait or landscape mode. For a limited time, get 20% off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's right, to get 20% off your Skylight Frame, just go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. Well, Peter, it's been a week. It's been quite the week. And before we get to anything, I want to give a shout out to my team at work. Yesterday we had a scary moment. We had somebody actually just drop dead right in the middle of our store. Older gentleman fell on his back, dropped dead. He was dead for about 15 minutes. And big shout out to my team who, with the help of some nurses who were just happened to be in the area, they all rushed over. Great response time. They were doing chest compressions. We got the defibrillator going. I kid you not, they brought this man back. They saved his life.
God bless,
he was
man.
talking, and he was alert when they left the store. So big shout out to the team. Because the situation was crazy, but you made somebody's holidays by saving this man's life. You literally are heroes for saving this gentleman's life.
Yeah.
So I just want to give a big shout out. I know they probably don't listen to the show, but regardless, the fact that's it has to be said. This is a platform we can use for sharing those kind of things. And I was there. I saw the gentleman. It was certainly one of the scariest things. Didn't know if he was going to make it, and got the update today that he's alert, he's doing well, and he's stable. So, shout out
God
to my
bless, man.
team, and
God bless.
somebody was on his side this holiday season. So, anyways,
Absolutely.
Peter, my friend, how you doing this week? We got some exciting news in terms of a guest coming on tonight. Leafs are playing right now. 2 quick goals in the first period here. It's 1-1. But how you doing, buddy? And why don't you intro our guest? Even though he's not here yet, he's going to be coming on shortly. Intro our guest.
Yeah, so I'm going to go in a little bit of chronological order. Going to be a little bit quick. Yeah, good week. And again, a big shout out to your team over where you work, dude. That is absolutely amazing. That is inspiring. That is just incredible, and great work and heroism all around from everybody involved. Glad that gentleman is doing well, and glad that he's going to be around for the holiday season. That it's something that you want to see. You want to be around by your loved ones, and just because of how quick that happened, the response team, or the way that you said, again, just absolutely inspiring, man. Again, thoughts are with him. And again, big shout out to your team as well. Week was good. Again, gearing up for the holiday season right now. As you know, getting closer to, the date of leaving when I head over to visit family for my fam jam for the holiday season. World Juniors are coming up, prepping a lot of stuff for that. Leafs, yeah, it's a crazy game right now. It's 1-1. Matt Grizzly got his first of the season on the power play. Mitch Marner tied it up minutes after that. Oddly enough, because we are going to be talking about Marner. We are going to be talking about, and like you said, this ties in well. The guest that we have on here is a very special one. It's the former director of scouting for the Maple Leafs. Was involved with the Matthews draft, the 2016 draft. Joseph Wall was in that draft as well. Recruited Mitch Marner, was scouting for the London Knights as well. Coach of the WHL, coaching the GTHL right now, and that's Lindsay Hofford. So we're really excited to have him come on the show. Just moments away from him coming on, but yeah, this is very, very exciting. It's going to be a very interesting chat with Lindsay at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should mention that it's somebody that you've been chasing for a little while, as you said.
Communication was always there.
That's right. Communication is always there. So he's just joined the chat. So we're gonna bring him on here real quick. Let's hopefully I've got it right this time. I've got it right. So
it's like we got it right. Yeah,
we got it right. Go ahead, Peter.
Hey there. So again, as I just mentioned, we have our guest here, director of scouting former director of scouting for the Maple Leafs, scout for the London Knights, head coach for the Lethbridge Hurricanes way back in the day, and current GTHL coach right now. Lindsay Hofford is joining us. Lindsay, how are you doing?
I'm great, guys. Finally, we get to meet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. As we mentioned off the show, we've been in talk for some time. We really wanted to have you on. This was the perfect opportunity. So we just want to thank you again for the time for coming on. And so let's just get right into it. Obviously, the biggest role that you've had in your career was the director of scouting with the Maple Leafs. I'm just curious, how did that role fall into place after a long career that you've had in hockey leading up to that point?
Actually, it was probably the second biggest, because I ended up being the assistant GM in Arizona for the Coyotes too. So,
yes.
Following that, that was basically my association with Mark Hunter. So, I started off with the London Knights. In the early 2000s as a coach. I was actually the first employee that Mark and Dale hired when they had bought the Knights. So I coached there for 3 years, and then went to Lethbridge following that. And then, it was a few years later, Mark and I met in a rink, and he asked me if I would help him out with scouting. My kid was playing 99 age group. And I said, no problem. And then within, very short period of time, I was director of scouting for London for 5 years. So we had a lot of success there. We went to 4 Memorial Cups in that time. Had a ton of NHL players that came through there. And then Mark got the job as assistant GM with the Leafs, and then hired me as a scout for Toronto. And I got promoted probably 2 or 3 months into that job to director of scouting. So, yeah, I would have no one to thank other than Mark for that opportunity. So,
First off, I'll say hell of a takeover for the Hunters in London. I mean, I'm in London. I mean, hell of a taker what they've done with the London Knights. Hell of a hire, obviously, with you coming in as well. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But Lindsay, I wanna kind of rewind a little bit here. How did you get into hockey in the first place?
like most Canadian boys, playing. So I started probably when I was 4 years old. I grew up in Sudbury, and everybody played hockey in Sudbury. So it was outdoor rinks, and there weren't back then like a lot of indoor rinks. So I started off there, really developed a passion. Most of my childhood memories evolve around hockey and NHL and hockey cards and ball hockey and table hockey. Everything was hockey. So it was my passion, basically since I was 4 years old. Ended up moving when I was 9 to Prince Edward County, and I was a decent hockey player growing up. Went to Cornwall Royals when I was 16. Had some scholarship opportunities in the U.S. As well. Ended up playing at University of Guelph, and then kind of got out of hockey, and was when I graduated and started in kind of the business world, and just was missing something in my life, and it was that ability to compete. So I got into coaching, and then started my business, Pro Hockey, and then that kind of evolved. Everything kind of evolved through the coaching. Coaching minor hockey and then junior hockey and then the OHL and the WHL. So I had like lots of success as a coach, and it's probably my true calling. But at the time, the NHL guys weren't making the money they do now. And most of the guys that I coached against at that time are all in the NHL. It's probably something I should have stuck with. But I really left the coaching and got into the hockey, more the hockey business side. And that kind of evolved into the scouting and then the management stuff. So basically from infancy, I've been in the game my whole life. So
you just mentioned the career that you've had, you coaching the WHL for the Hurricanes for a short time, scouting with both the London Knights at the NHL level, assistant general manager at the NHL level. What drew you to that business side of the game that you mentioned? Because again, it's a long, extensive resume that you have right now.
I guess the best way to put it is just like it was a dream of mine to be involved in it, and there was nothing other than just it was my passion as a kid. And when you have the ability to work in an industry where you're passionate about it, it doesn't seem like you've ever had a job. Mm-hmm. So, especially when I was working in the NHL, every day was, like a great day. So, in coaching, I loved like working with players, watch them improve, and then see them go on to their career. So like hockey's been like a giant part of my life and a very like rewarding experience from the start really to the culmination here, I'm 60 now, so it's been a long road. So I've got no regrets at all. I have the ability to basically do what I want in life, and it's been awesome. So
before we get into all the Leaf talk, because there's definitely some Leaf ties there, what was it like being with the Arizona Coyotes, especially kind of like knowing the history and where they kind of sat in the league? Like, what was it like being a part of that team? Because from what we've heard, having some folks from Arizona on, the organization itself was really a class organization. It just didn't seem to work out.
Yeah. So, I mean, Arizona as a hockey market, I think it's like has a ton of potential. The problem was where they put the rink, and to get to the rink on a weekday was very, very difficult for where our fan base was. They basically took the fan base and built the rink at the opposite end of the city. So, I don't know if you know, that's like the layout of Arizona. So that was difficult. Our weekday games, when I was there, we set a record in that rink for fans. We set like a sponsorship record. Things were really going in the right direction. We made the playoffs. We beat Nashville in the first round. Things were really looking good. Then they had an ownership change. And then I could write a book on that. It was like just the last group there it was just humorous, some of the stuff and ideas they had. We were basically moving to New Jersey, and then that's with John, because he got offered the big deal in New Jersey, and then the league didn't like the way the deal went down, and then he ended up getting suspended, and I was loyal to him, and I waited kind of to see what was going on, and nothing really ever transpired, which I was fine with. So but the town was great. I enjoyed my time there. The weather was fantastic. The people I worked with were great. The players were great. Everything was good, but it just ended, unfortunately, prematurely for like reasons that were out of my control. So.
Is it safe to say that Arizona, like, there's a future for hockey in Arizona?
There's a future in Arizona with the right ownership and the right placement of the arena. There's like for the NHL, you need the right socioeconomic community to support it, because it's an expensive sport.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, the markets there, like, they're minor hockey. They don't have you can't get ice there. Like, it's growing like crazy. And, with the university team that's doing like exceptionally well there, I mean, there's a market for it. And you got to think too, like, when people are in that kind of heat all the time, getting out to a rink is like a relief. So,
absolutely.
they kind of gravitate to it. And I think it'll resurface there. It's just a matter of time.
No, we mentioned off the top, or like many times on the show before, that it's unfortunate that they had to move over to Utah. But like you said, if the right ownership is in place, the right location, it definitely is a thriving market for that kind of team to succeed. It showed it in the past leading up to, I guess, the mid thousands, where everything started on the decline. But just jumping over right now, we've talked about it, and Arizona did give us Austin Matthews. I think this is kind of like the perfect segue for that, where hockey is very important because it's giving us Matthews, giving us Matthew Knies, giving us Tage Thompson. It's showing the progression for players going to that next level from, kind of like that market where it's maybe not heard of, but it's developing players right now. Obviously, you were a part of that 2016 draft. The big thing that I want to ask you, Lindsay, is what was your initial reaction when the balls came in line, when you got the first overall pick, and Austin Matthews was obviously the top prize that year? What was your initial reaction to that, and then the moments leading up to the draft?
It was bittersweet for me because we didn't know we were going to win the lottery, and we were picking Matthews. We didn't even actually go to see Matthews that often.
Yeah.
Because there was just no discussion. The year that he had the previous year, and he was obviously a generational player. So we didn't have that, but we didn't know what we were picking. We were going to pick in the top three. And when, there were Liney and Puviari and Dubois, and I was given the task of who was better, Liney or Puviari. So I must have spent close to 3 months in Finland that year. My wife was ready to kill me at the end of it because I was just in Finland the whole time following those guys around. And Puviari played way up north, like where there was, like in the winter, there was no sun. So it was dark, like basically 24/7. And then they played each other in the playoffs, and I was just traveling back and forth. with those guys like nonstop. So for me, when we didn't get a chance to make the pick and I was like, oh my God, I just wasted half my life there. But then obviously you get Austin Matthews, and it was like, it was, a great time. And the funny part is when we did it, I think Mitch was at my house when the lottery thing was on, because I was having a party for the lottery. So, which was kind of funny because it, obviously had Mitch before Austin, but it was fitting. And then we got him. Like we were like, oh, having him and Mitch in back-to-back drafts, and Nylander the year before, and then Riley. You really have a cornerstone of like a Stanley Cup team. So.
Yeah, I've told this story on the pod before, but like when that lottery took place, I was hanging out with my wife's cousin's, not husband at the time, but boyfriend. We were close, but not to the point of like, we didn't hug it out or anything like that. But as soon as the Leafs got the first overall pick, I remember him jumping into my arms. He's just this little guy, so he jumped into my arms, and it was like we celebrated like we were the closest of friends. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned Mitch. I think we gotta tie that in as well. Like you went from getting Mitch Marner in London to then getting him in Toronto. Like, what was it about Mitchie that stood out to you as somebody who focused in on not just the skill level, but their all around game?
Well, I've known Mitch since he was like 6 or 7, so I worked with him, and he was in our company, so I had a great understanding. So. I just thought he was another generational player. I still think he's the best player on the Leafs. I think he makes everybody around him better. I think he's like plays penalty kill. Matthews gets all the offensive zone starts. Mitch gets the defense. He usually plays against the top team or lines of the other teams. I just think he just does so much for a team, makes guys around him better. But when I usually go scouting, I watch and I'm like, okay, here's the right play. And then I'd watch Mitch, and I'd be, here's the right play. And then he'd do something that I didn't even see, which was better. And I'd be like, whoa. And I'm like, this guy's a phenom. So at the time when we drafted him, I had absolutely no support in London. So there wasn't one scout that really was on my side. Because you got to remember, at the time he was probably 5'6" and weighed like 130 pounds. So I knew the mom was like tall. Paul's not the tallest guy, and the brother Chris is like over 6 feet. So I figured Mitch would grow, and even if he didn't, he still would have been able to play. So we were able to. Mark was Mark was on board. Dale at the start wasn't. Mitch went up and played in St. Mike's, and after his minor midget year was over, and he was like their best player in junior. And I got all the video and clipped it and then sent it to Dale, and then Dale was like, "Oh yeah, this guy's a phenom." But when we drafted him, the scouts were mad. They were like, guys were breaking pencils and throwing them in the air and this and that. And then Mitch came out and skated with the guys that weren't playing in the playoffs and the assistant coaches. And I think it was Dale and Steady, and they came in and they go, this guy's like ridiculous. He's like unbelievable. And then there was a couple of scouts in there, and they're like, yeah, we had him. And Dale just like lost it on him. And like, you guys didn't. I was about to say, was there side of it, but
I was just about to chime in. I'm like, was there any point where all the other scouts would be like, "Oh yeah, we knew the same thing," but you were the one that was always vouching for Mitch at that point?
No, everybody had him at the end of it. All the guys that hated him, they all loved him. At the end. Yeah, I had him. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny.
I mean, it's safe to say though too, like seeing him play with Matthews out of the lineup the last 2 or 3 weeks, like. His ability to kind of carry that team without Matthews in the lineup kind of justifies what you said in terms of this guy's potentially the best player on the Leafs right now.
he is the best player. I don't think anytime he's not. I think that Mitch cares so much, and the media is being so toxic towards him and completely unfounded. I mean, if you look at the analytics, like of even the playoffs, and I think Mitch will be the first to admit that, he still led the team in all the times. Like if you add up all their points in playoffs, Matthews, Nylander, him, Mitch is still the leading guy. But I think he he cares so much, and with the toxicity in the media in Toronto, coupled with the organization, like guys there earlier that weren't like willing to come out and just like stand up for him. And I know Mitch, like I've known him since he was a kid. I know what kind of kid he is. Like he'll pay you back in spades if you like, but no one like really stood up for him. I know some of the players did, but to me it was a failure on the Leafs organization if they, when they didn't. But I think they were all happy that Mitch was taking it and they weren't. So to me it was a big mistake on their part, and it was the wrong thing to do. Because the kid's a gem. He loves Toronto. He loves the Leafs. He loves his teammates. He makes everything better. And I just thought he was kind of mismanaged, mishandled, and it to me was it was very, very difficult for me to watch what he was going through, and it was unfounded. So.
And it's always like, even when Mitch comes out too, like he's always like, even obviously a big year for him, and he's rising to the occasion during the contract year where he wants to remain a Maple Leaf for a long time, and you rarely see that where players show that dedication like Mitch is right now. And obviously, as you mentioned, you have a really, really good rapport with him dating back years ago. What's it like seeing that progression from a player like Mitch? From junior to the NHL. Obviously, he's gone through a lot of head coaches, but what's the big difference that you see him from back then till now with the new coach in Craig Berube?
I don't know. Mitch has always been the same. I think like what you give to him, he'll give you back. So I know Craig's a great guy. He's like, and I coached Sheldon in junior too, and Sheldon's a good coach and whatnot. I just think there was just Toronto's like a very difficult market. And like I said, the toxicity with the media, it puts pressure on people it's not fair. Like, and it comes like every day in practice. Like I heard like the most ridiculous like comment this year, and I thought Berube handled it like perfectly. They had lost a couple of games in preseason, and the lady was asking a question. She's like, "Is it time to push the panic button yet?" And obviously Craig hasn't worked in this market. And he said, "Pardon?" Because it's time to. He goes, "We're in preseason. We don't even have our team." Like, and but it just goes like to the like they just like they're never happy. They don't like. I don't know. It's hits a soft or like a sore spot with me because I see what they do to like really like what I consider really good people that care, that are, they're great hockey people. They're great players. And I see what they do to them. And I see when people leave and their comments and stuff. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like, it's not a great place to play because the players, you play in Toronto, you're a Toronto Maple Leaf forever, but it could be so different if these guys, all I would ask is that they're made accountable. And if they make these gross predictions and they say stuff and then it doesn't come through, then they should be fired like a coach or cut like a player. And they're not. They just, they never seem to, they just go on to the next thing. And I think it's just the reason Toronto will never win. It's just the toxicity in the media. That's my personal viewpoint.
Yeah, they kind of ride the wave, right? Like there's your mainstream guys that kind of ride the wave with the team and like to criticize where they can, and then kind of be at that high point when the team's at the high point as well. But I got to ask you, like you said, Craig, obviously Mitchie, like when this meeting, this coffee meeting came out in the off season, what did you make of that? Like everyone was speculating, right? Like, what's he saying to Mitchie? What's going on? What's he gonna try? How is he gonna try and get him to play and sign a new contract? Like, did obviously the media in Toronto's rough. but was this completely blown out of proportion?
Yeah, 100%. Like it usually is. They make a story when there's not a story.
Yeah.
The guy goes around and meets all his players. Like he's not going to meet Mitch Marner. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like just like if you guys were coaching, you'd want to meet your players before you went in there. It'd have been a very casual meeting. Like, hey, glad to meet you. Here, here's what I know about you. And obviously, Craig and Dale Hunter are like very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
They played together. They're like being good like friends for like 30 years. So, Craig and Dale are going to speak, and obviously Dale's going to be banging the drum for Mitch. So again, blown out of proportion. So.
Yeah, you were just talking about like how it was blown out of proportion, and that was even at the draft too in Vegas, where that was one of the main questions asked about the coffee meet, the photo going viral, and Craig just brushed it off, saying, "Yeah, I've forgotten all about it," basically. So it was a non-factor for him because, like you said, new environment, new coach. He wants to go and meet his players around. That it just seems like one of those things, one of those like side stories that just really had no relevance to it. But I mean, we talked about Matthews, we talked about Marner, and one player that's starting to show up a little bit right now and gaining the trust of Maple Leafs management is one of the other players from the 2016 draft that's standing out right now, and Joseph Woll. Obviously, the Maple Leafs have had trouble with their drafting and development of goaltenders in the past, but at that time, kind of seemed like Woll seemed to have the potential to be one of those players that could make an impact at the NHL level, and he's having a really solid season right now, forming a tandem with Anthony Stolarz. What was your initial reaction when you drafted Woll back in 2016?
Well, it's a kind of a funny story. The Leafs have no limit to spend, so it was in Buffalo. We had the first pick, and we had the big ballroom in Buffalo at the hotel, ice sculptures, like enough food to feed an army. And then we drafted only two guys that were at the draft. So we had all this stuff. And the only two guys that showed up were Woll and Matthews. So I got to spend a lot of time with Woll and his family. And like, obviously we knew he was a good goalie, but this guy is like just an outstanding human being, and his family. Like, just I find the players that have humility like end up being the great, like the best guys. So I'm very, very happy to being part of the draft that drafted him. And I'll give you a story. We drafted him, and I think I don't think I saw him after the draft. And then this year, Mitch opened a restaurant in Toronto, and Woll was there, and he came up and introduced himself to me, and I didn't recognize him. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you're at the draft. Well, you drafted me like this, that, and this." And I'm like, "Wow, this is like, what a great kid." And like, had a conversation with him, and just when good people are able to achieve great things, you're so happy for him, and I wish him all the best. He's a great goalie and a great kid and a great teammate, so wish him all the best.
Now, you're responsible, or you've had some kind of connection in getting well over 200 players into the NHL. What is it that you look for when you're looking at scouting, and you're let's say, I mean, obviously you can't scout forwards the same way you scout defense, the same way you scout goalies, but is there something that is universal that maybe you look for as a scout going into drafts?
In the broad strokes, obviously talent is the first thing that jumps out at you, and then the second thing is character, and that's where I mentioned the humility. And what I view as character and being the best teammate you can be, making players around you better. In the NHL, you need if you can connect the dots on maybe three skills, like, you're a shooter, you've got great size, and you can skate, then you got a good chance of being an NHL player. Like, you need like maybe three of those things. And there's lots of guys, like we had Matt Tkachuk in London, and like he didn't go as high as he should have in the draft. The guy had elite compete, elite hockey sense, elite size. He had everything, but he wasn't a great skater, and guys backed off on him. So, I just think if you can connect it, and again, I'm just a great kid too, and that guy comes to play every game. So I think like if there's 3 things that you can kind of hang your hat on in the NHL, then you'll be a player. So, but another thing is the game's changing all the time. So, back in the 80s where the game was a little bit rougher and tougher, then there was, different elements you needed. And then there was like, we got caught in it a couple of times where, the puck moving D were going to be the guy, and there was a couple of smaller D, and now it's back to the big D, and you can have one small guy. So with the game changing and rule changing, you kind of got to navigate through that and make that. But to me, just the skill and the character are the 2 starting points.
You just brought up some really great points on what you look for in scouting a player, but you're also developing them for the next level. And as I mentioned off the top, you coach in the GTHL, the Greater Toronto Hockey League, and 2 names that were on one of your rosters for the Junior Canadians were Jake O'Brien and Luca Romano, both getting drafted into the OHL, both on Canada's Hlinka Gretzky Cup roster, which won gold this past August, and they're both up for the NHL draft this year. I'm just curious to get, obviously me and Andrew were big, and we do a lot of scouting and writing for the prospects and cover the draft for the hockey writers. I just want to get a quick scouting report from both players, because they seem to be like very highly talented players and could go within the first 2-3 rounds this year.
Well, Jake will go in the first, I would say 10 picks. Like, I've coached Jake since the Brick. So he's been like, since he was 10, I've known him. So, when I went to JRC, it was kind of, I think at the end of the year, basically. What I saw from him was like just elite talent, like another guy that made people around him better. He oozes with character, not a big like talker, but one of the things that I noticed about Jake and that I was most proud of, we were in a game and the guys weren't really playing that well, and he had never really spoke that much, and he was the captain, and he came in that room and he tore a strip off the guys, and it was like basically perfect. And we came out and we just destroyed the team, and I was like, man, this guy's like just a great leader. He's a great kid. He's a great player. Anybody that gets him, like, he's going to be like a Bergeron type guy. And I assume he's going to go lower in the draft than he should, because I think he's one of those guys that is just going to be a value pick. His skating's probably the knock on him, but I don't see it as a knock. I just see he gets to pucks. He understands how to cut off puck lines, and he's really good at the point of contact. So I think the sky's the limit for Jake, and I think he's a winner. Luca is a great story because he was a AA player. So he wasn't playing AAA, and then he got up to AAA, and he's a guy that he just like, again, he flies. He's got a great shot on the move. He's really rounded out his game, like PK, two-way game. He really cares. Just a super kid too, like unbelievable kid. So those guys, to me, they check all the boxes.
It's great that you brought them up because, or I just had to ask about them because of the way they progressed so well. Obviously, O'Brien, definitely a first-round talent. Romano teetering on that brink where maybe he could go a little bit higher, he could go a little bit lower. But the way that I've seen or watching him early on, I think he's going to be a bona fide second rounder or a great value pick early on. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you for your take on that because you have a lot of experience coaching them. And again, for them to see that kind of success right now, it's starting to pay off dividends.
Yeah, I think he's going to go higher than people expect. I'm getting a lot of great feedback from him, from scouts and the Rangers as well. So I think he might be a guy that goes a little bit higher. And Jake could go too. Like he could jump up like another 5 spots if someone. I think Jake will excel in the interview process too.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start really just breaking down his video, they're going to see what, he's just a complete player and a winner. So, and he's won at every age that he's played too, which to me means something. So,
Lindsay, before we close it out here with you, I have two questions here. So I'll ask them all in one. But as the dad of the podcast, have your kids found their way into hockey as well? And beyond that, if you had one crazy story, obviously you've got a long history of being in the world of hockey. But if you have one crazy story from your years in hockey, what would it be?
God, well, my kids both worked for me in Arizona, and they scouted. Cal scouted for London, and they both played. So Cal's currently in Boston with his wife, and they just had a baby. So he's working with Chris Masters with the Junior Bruins. So he's still in hockey, and my son Adam is with the Will Sports Group. So he's an agent. So both kids are working. And wow, God, geez, I've seen a lot of crazy things in hockey. I could tell you I don't know, man. Some things I gotta watch what I say, but probably the craziest thing I ever saw in hockey was I was playing junior, and we had like a bench brawl, and everybody on the ice was fighting. And the rink was packed, and some guy that had a little bit too much to drink tried to scale the glass. So he made it to the glass, and everybody was like beating the living daylights out of each other. And he fell down on the ice and got up, but he had a toupee on and it fell off. And so he got up. And I swear to God, the whole brawl stopped. So that was it was like the Slapshot movie. So it's like, that was probably the craziest thing that I can tell you that I've ever saw. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's a better way to close off the segment than with that, Lindsay. Again, we appreciate you coming on. Again, we've been in constant contact nonstop to try and make this work, and we found the perfect time and date. Just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing us with your experience, your past, and again, we just really appreciate your time.
I apologize for the lighting, but guys, it's been a long wait, but I had a lot of fun and really appreciate you reaching out. All the best in the future.
Thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate it.
that.
Okay, guys.
Have a great night.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, I mean, you know what?
A perfect way to close that off. I mean, a hockey brawl, but then a toupee comes flying off and everyone just basically stops. I mean,
I want to start throwing that question at people, right? Because like somebody who's been in the league as long or been around the game as long as he has, you have those stories where things like that happen, where a toupee falling off a guy jumping over the boards can stop a 5-on-5 bench clearing brawl. So I mean, what a great guest though. I you know what? I love the insight. That's the second person that we've had on this podcast who said the Leafs could do with not could do without, but that maybe Austin Matthews isn't the guy in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, you're hearing. I believe the first person was, quote me if I'm wrong, I believe it was Sheriff, no?
Absolutely was Sheriff. He opened up the show. He opened up the show, like, which was a heated he was on one that night. Mm-hmm. And he opened it up with a monologue about how Austin Matthews was not the guy. Which, I mean, what a way to start off a show.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with Lindsay here, it's just basically, what better way than a person that's known, a player that's in the NHL right now for so long. I mean, you can't get a better, firsthand account of what the player's character is like. And you see it in the play right now. He scored the goal that tied the game up. The Leafs are down 2-1. But you look at his overall play. I mean, the fact that Matthews was out, he was their best player. You could make a case for Tavares, Nylander, but everything was running through Mitch the last, 2 week, or basically, I was going to say 2 weeks, but the last 9 games basically without Austin. And he was doing it all. He got the goals. He was setting up the plays. He was being a two-way threat. And they were even talking about his play this just before the game, how he's like leading the league in takeaways, slot shot passes, or slot passes to the high danger area. He is a legitimate threat. And again, we've been critical of Mitch as well in terms of like finding that next gear, finding that extra level. And if he can play with that bite and a little bit more consistency, just like he did against Nashville, where we saw him go up against Zachary LaRue, where he did something to Anthony Stolarz that he really didn't like, and he was throwing haymakers along with Matthew Knies. Sign me up for that, because that is absolutely amazing to see. And the fact that, you know, you have a new coach, new system, and it's maybe something that's rubbing off on Mitch right now, where he's thriving and playing better than he has in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly, like, the part that I love too was when I said that, you know, for him to hit, he is potentially the best player on the Leafs, and he came back with, no, he is the best player on the Leafs. Mm-hmm. And just the overall confidence with that, I absolutely love it. I mean, guy's a quote machine. He's on par with, like, we've said it before. We have given some of these players a hard time, but at the same time, the media in Toronto is it's a game changer for these guys, and it can drive guys out of the city. Honestly,
you look at Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, New York, where the media is always in your face, basically right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
makes it a tough market to win in for sure, like 1,000%. I know the game's on. The second period started. We want to kind of close it down shortly here, but before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors over at DraftKings. The 2024-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive the reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights are reserved. Crazy story about DraftKings. A guy at work right now is a VIP member with DraftKings. Just got this VIP status.
Whoa.
You do not want to know what goes into becoming a VIP, how he got there. It's actually insane.
I think you have to have a certain limit of something at least, right?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about his numbers. No. I've asked to see the overall account summary, and it makes me sick. But I mean, good for him. Like, he's gonna get some opportunities here. Yep. But I mean, he paid to get there for sure. Anyways, before we close it out, we got to talk about, you know, the title is Marner, Money, and Matthew Knies. Word is talks have opened up again with Matthew Knies' camp in terms of getting a long-term extension done in Toronto. A guy who's obviously off to a great start for his second season with the Maple Leafs. The other conversation is, of course, Mitch Marner and what he would get in the open market, but also what the Leafs are going to offer him as a free agent, likely when the season is done. Where are we going here, Peter? Where are we going with Mitch Marner and Matthew Knies?
Okay, let me quickly start off with Matthew Knies first, because seems to me maybe a little bit easier for me, because I actually wrote about Matthew Knies playing towards a big payday back at the beginning of November, and there was a lot of talk that the actual framework or potential, comparable contract was between Juraj Slafkovsky and Alexei Lafreniere. Slafkovsky, we know, $7.6 million and $7.45 million for Alexei Lafreniere. Obviously, both are power forwards within their own right. Kind of seems like maybe Montreal may have jumped the gun a little bit in terms of giving that money to Slafkovsky. We've talked about it many times before on here. Lafreniere looked like, I see fist pump. Toronto scored, didn't they?
Nylander on the power play, 2-2.
Let's go. Fantasy points right there. I need that.
Marner with the assist. Just
Saying
saying, the
2-point game for Mitch Marner. So you know what?
Conversation's there.
We got to get Lindsay on more often. I think that's the main thing what you're trying to say. I'm gonna have to follow up with him and let him know that Mitch is already producing. So
getting the sticks bump, eh? Getting the
exactly.
Sticks
bump. So just going back on track. I feel like when you compare those three players, Slafkovsky, Lafreniere, and Knies, I looked back and seeing what their numbers were, and especially this season too. Mind you, this was back in November. These are what the numbers were at that time. Matthew Knies blows basically Slafkovsky and Lafreniere, their numbers out of the water. Like, he leads in Corsi for, expected goals for, scoring chances for, high danger chances, high danger goals for. Obviously, he's playing with a little bit better competition. Slafkovsky has the better goals for percentage, but you look at his numbers, not really well. And obviously, I think he was playing with Caulfield and Suzuki at the time. Then again, the lines have changed up. Could be wrong, but Matthew Knies is excelling in all of those categories. He's producing with top tier players. He's playing a big role. He's basically their number one power forward. And I think that in hindsight, if you're the Maple Leafs and you want to start off at around 5.5, I think anybody in the Leaf Nation stratosphere will take that deal and run away with it. But if you're doing a comparable thing and you want to give that long-term contract with great value, you got to think that maybe then that number does start with a 7. And Matthew Knies, considering that he's been better statistically than Slafkovsky and Lafreniere, maybe 7.5. Again, I'm just spitballing right here. I know Elliot Friedman did say that he's going to have a lot of zeros at the end of his next contract. So well deserved for that. As for Mitch,
before you get to Mitch, here's the problem. And Mitch, like those third and fourth contracts are a little different. When you're talking about a guy like Matthew Knies, he falls into that realm of paying for what you're gonna get. And
that's what they did with Montreal and New York. Yeah.
And you want to talk about a mistake, talk about Boston and Mikhail Samuelsson. I mean,
Buffalo.
What did I say?
Boston.
Yeah,
Buffalo.
Sorry. I was thinking Buffalo. And then I looked at Pittsburgh. I looked at Pittsburgh and saw the colors, and I was like, Boston.
Yeah.
Anyways, Buffalo and Mikhail Samuelsson, and you're paying for what you want to get from these players, and it really has changed the realm in terms of predicting the contracts, but also in terms of what some of these players are expecting, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not to say Matthew Knies is going to fall into that window and say, like, I expect, a $7 million contract over the next 8 years.
Yeah.
That's saying, like, 5.5 for a guy who potentially could put up, let's say 50 to 60 points.
Mm-hmm.
5.5 is a lot. 5.5 is a big dollar amount for 60 to 70 points. Or sorry, 50 to 60 points. That said, that's the way the NHL is trending, and with the cap going up, that's something
possibly going up too. There's that.
Absolutely. So, anyways, back to your thoughts on Mitch Marner. Obviously, as Lindsay pointed out, a guy that's got pure talent, raw talent, impressed people who didn't even want him on the team, and he was the guy with making the moves that nobody saw coming. His hockey IQ's through the roof. We've seen it in Toronto for 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about with Mitch Marner? Is he going to be with Toronto next season?
So, in a perfect world, I think if you lose Mitch Marner for nothing, that is absolutely a big mistake. There's no doubt about that. So the best thing to do is to keep him in the fold. Now, I just came out with a piece where do you give him a contract mid-season like you did with Nylander, or do you wait to after the postseason where maybe he hasn't quite had the best results over the last 2-3 series that he's played in? Numbers are there, but I think everyone just wants to see that little bit more edge, that little bit more consistency. Kind of, again, I kind of allude to that game against Nashville where maybe if you play with that edge, maybe that contract is in the cards. Now, what that number is going to be, I really don't know. I think this is a little bit more difficult considering where he values himself as a very impactful two-way star, potential 100-point winger in the league. Then you should get the big payday. Obviously, he's making $10 million right now. Everyone is basically saying, "Oh, he shouldn't be making more than what he is right now. He shouldn't be making more than 12. He shouldn't be asking for Leon Draisaitl money." Maybe I don't put him in that stratosphere as a Leon Draisaitl. I don't think he's close to anywhere that $14 million range because Draisaitl has some accolades to go with. Mm-hmm. Again, Mitch Marner has been in contention for some awards, not to the value of what Draisaitl is at the moment, but there isn't any doubt that Mitch Marner is probably a more, or I shouldn't say probably, I feel like he could be a more complete player than Leon Draisaitl because of the power play, 5-on-5, penalty kill, you name it. I'm just trying to see right now if, not even looking at the right, I just got to pull up what Draisaitl's contract actually is just to familiarize myself. 14 million AAV.
Yeah.
So again, I don't put Mitch Marner in $14 million range. Should he be making around roughly the same as William Nylander? Possibly, maybe just a little bit more. Maybe because I think you kind of like his last contract, he wanted to be put on the same pedestal as Matthews, and because he's just as impactful, maybe you do 12.5. I don't know. I don't try to pose as an insider or I have the inside knowledge, but that kind of seems like a safe bet where it's more than Nylander, maybe just a little bit under than Matthews because centers are more valued than left or right wings in the league, but you can't overlook his contributions right now. So that's where maybe I would probably give Mitch Marner. But then again, we saw what happened when Matthews was out and everyone is just like, pay Mitch Marner whatever he wants right now. Everyone's back on that train. So we'll see what happens, but you can't lose him for nothing unless you know you could probably get another equal value player or multiple pieces that can accrue to his kind of contract. But then again, if JT's taking less, cap is going up, then you have a lot more room to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that Leafs Nation has recency bias, right? Like, give Matthews 10 goals over the next 10 games, and all of a sudden you're forgetting all about the conversation of Mitch Marner, which is not right. I mean, we talked about this in the preseason, like with David Alter. Like, do you sign a mid-season with a guy who's top 10 in scoring right now in the NHL? Or do you wait till after the season and hope that maybe potentially he, has a dud of a playoffs and maybe you can get him for slightly cheaper? I don't think that works that way now. I think based on what he's done production-wise with Matthews out of the lineup, there's no chance that you get him for short of 11.5.
No,
there's no
I think
chance.
That's just the bare minimum right now.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's got to be something that they get done sooner than later because I think if you wait, it puts more power into his hands, and that's not a bad thing. Like Lindsay said, I mean, this is a guy who would do anything to play in Toronto. I think he wants to be in Toronto. I think he's made that very clear that he wants to be in Toronto. But it's definitely it's I think you're crazy if you don't get something done sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. And that was the big question. Mid-season, kind of like Nylander, or again, wait it out until you go to July 1st. I don't know if you want to do that because you're probably playing with fire, but then again, a lot of teams are probably going to try to figure something out. Well, how can we try and get Mitch Marner into the fold? It's going to be tough when you're asking for like the kind of money that he's asking for. But if it's going to be a low market team where maybe the chances aren't that great, maybe Toronto's just got to pony up and just be like, you know what, we'll give you the money because the opportunity here is greater.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Lastly, before we close it out here, Peter, quick word from our last sponsors over at Gametime. There is nothing like being in the arena, in the stadium, soaking in the sound, soaking in the sights when it comes to sports, theater, anything like that. But you want to talk about a super deal and how good it is? Let's talk about Gametime. Gametime has Gametime picks, where it's a curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, everything of that sort. It's all in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout, which we know exists elsewhere. Seat views, you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you even buy the tickets, so you know what your view is going to be like. And it's the lowest price guarantee. Otherwise, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing agency. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. And it's crazy. If you look at some of these deals, there's like $8 tickets to go see the Blackhawks. It's insane. Make sure you download Gametime. Use the code THPN. Get your $20 off and get out to a game or theater or comedy, whatever floats your boat. But that's all I got this week. I don't know if you really want to talk about anything else. Shout out to Connor Dewar who reached the 200 game plateau. So nice little milestone there for Connor Dewar. He's kind of in and out of the lineup right now. In tonight as they look at it 2-2. Pacioretty goes from the box on the ice back into the box, so Leafs are on the penalty kill again. But Peter, before we close out, anything you wanted to share with the listeners?
Just some interesting news that I was just scrolling through right now from Cam Robinson. Obviously with that whole CHL NCAA agreement, a lot of teams there's a lot of like frameworks of deals in place right now. Michael Misa and Boston University have a possible framework in place for next season. So it definitely is going to be interesting to seeing how this now affects players right now. And, you know, we've talked about this on the Prospect Corner show, how this could be a good framework and possibility for players who quite aren't at that NHL level to get a little bit more experience and a little bit more competition in after the junior career or towards the tail end of that. So this could possibly be what we've seen other deals in place, but this could be a potential big one with the top 5 pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, once again, BU making some noise. I think, they're an elite program, so it doesn't surprise me there. Before we close out, a couple of quick notes from the junior circuit here. Easton Cowan hit 56 games in a row, regular season games. He got a shout out from Dougie Gilmore. Dougie's record was a single season record of 55 games. So Easton Cowan has the unofficial OHL record.
He has the longest point streak, but not the single season.
Yes,
unfortunately.
That's
but
correct.
We're still counting it as that.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, did leave last game with an injury after taking a huge hit. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully he's back and healthy soon. On top of that, Misa, did you see him get kicked out of the? He was ejected from the teddy bear toss.
Yeah, so during the teddy bear toss, he shot a stuffed animal back into the crowd.
Yeah. And it's supplemental discipline for firing objects, foreign objects into the crowd, I believe was the OHL comment on it. But anyways, some fun junior topics. No toupees falling off. That's for sure. So that's definitely one for the lifetime. But anyways, that's all I got, Peter. again, hell of a week. Glad we got Lindsay on finally. It's been a while. We've been chasing this guy. It was good to get him on. As you know, he had some lighting issues, so that's why we had a nice little black square over in the corner. But still, a lot of great takes. And
absolutely,
let us know in the comment section below: is Mitch Marner the best player on the Toronto Maple Leafs? I want to get everyone's take. So make sure you leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Let's get that number up there. Let's continue to push it. Big shout out to the Hockey Podcast Network as they continue to produce quality hockey podcast content. As always, DraftKings, Gametime, No Name Hockey, and Indie Ale House. That's all I got for Peter and myself this week for Sticks in the Six. Episode 182. Go Leafs, go.